Hey everybody, BLBDart here. We're going to go ahead and film Eternal Twilight. Depending on whether or not you've played it before, we're going to go ahead and find out what this game is all about. This kind of dialogue might seem cliche, but really there's no other way to establish a character as being some kind of cold-hearted killer. You kind of have to have him speak those words in order for him to be recognized as somebody who would do evil things. Alright, this is the first official battle of the entire game. Of course, at this point, it's Torch's job to murder this poor, innocent man. So this is the fateful meeting where he meets this unknown character. Yeah, thinking about it now, maybe he shouldn't have casually thrown in that he's the Heartless Soul. I don't think anybody would say that. It's bad that this mysterious character laughs with an oh ho 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 ho. But later in the game, I never make the character, when it's revealed who they are, laugh like that again. The words "I love you" are highlighted in blue, but without voice acting, that was really the only way to get it to kind of have any more meaning. Of course, that was the key word that triggered something inside of Torch's head that just made him stop in his tracks. This is the first nameable character in the game. We can name him... Oh, actually, let's leave his name the way it was. So really, this character's main goal is to just fight Torch. He doesn't really care about anything other than fighting. Now that the word love has been introduced, Torch has no drive whatsoever. He's completely depressed. Another thing, I guess, if this guy could have teleported in here, I don't know why he didn't do the job by himself. Well, then again, why do villains do anything? So Torch's personal skill is really just Vengeance Flash. And then when Rylus levels up, he will have more skills. Should have something like shark-named attacks, really. They're all named after different types of sharks, depending on their ferocity in battle. The skill, that is, not the sharks. So I'm sure sharks aren't accustomed to battle. Well, of course, this zombie is kind of like a mini-boss, even though it's the second enemy in the game. It's the first mention of the goddesses coming out of the mom's mouth. Of course, in this realm, it is ruled by different elemental goddesses. So he's an expert brawler, and he's an expert tracker. Suddenly, Rylus feels compelled to protect Torch. When I originally wrote him, I thought about him speaking really badly and uneducated, but that turned out to actually be difficult for people to read in general. Just his text would have a lot of apostrophes and use words that didn't necessarily exist, and there wasn't any really way to emphasize him kind of slurring or anything. So at this point, the mechanic is now Torch, who is just depressed out of his head because of the character using the word love, reminding him of horrible memories of his past, and Rylus wanting Torch to pick things back up and fight these mysterious assailants. Alright, so it automatically transports you to the world map. Of course, you were very near to the cabin. This is the cabin that they were just at, but it's locked. You know, now we can open the inventory. You can see that we have a bunch of different equipment, items. Of course, they don't really have that much. It's the beginning of the game. We have a menu. That's about it. 140 gold. Okay, in this game, you actually can't walk through the forest. I intentionally did that just to kind of give it a little bit more structure. Welcome to Emvale Village. This is the first time I've ever used Emvale as a word in a game. And if any of you have ever played more than one Oliveair game, I use Emvale and Foxton very often. Alright, this guy's mentioning the iron mines near the city, of course. Iron mines are the main source of income for this town. Of course, here's a shop, here's the inn, here's a dog barks at you. More mention of the mine. Now they're talking garbage about that cabin out there in the woods that you were just at. The people that live at the cabin, according to that woman, are some weird people. Which later in the storyline is, of course, true. Mine mentioned again. Clearly, you must go to the mine. Okay, of course, this tells you to save your game. You can save your game. Been playing for 14 minutes. Quiet, peaceful village. By the way, mines. Weapon shop. Maybe we can afford some weapons, even though we only got into 2 fights. Alright, we can afford an iron blade. That would help. That's about it. I know the house in the middle is the quest house, but we also have the option of coming into I forgot all about that, yeah. When you play any kind of organ, it will automatically increase Torch's stats by 1 secret one. This is a secret conversation where you can just kind of talk to the priest about Torch's troubles. And Torch reveals that he's not necessarily too in tune with faith in terms of the goddesses of Redendia. The priest asks, what's stopping you from believing? And Torch says, everything. Alright, so when we go into the middle house, we see that the father from the cabin that you were trying to kidnap the daughter from is in this town begging for something. And we also learn that the father's name is Irid, and the muscular man with no hair is named Crass. That is a weird coincidence that he would be in this house at this time that you happen to wander into without any real direction. So it turns out somebody else wound up kidnapping Irid's daughter after you left. And they happen to take her to the iron mines that everyone continues to talk about non-stop. He explains that the iron mines had to close because a few people died in them. And Rylus, of course, jumps into everything head first and feels compelled to try and go to the iron mine and save the daughter from the men. He remembers that Torch is a mercenary and they could hire him in order to do the job. And you kind of have a choice here, but of course it's one of those RPG forced choices where you can kind of choose, but in the end you're going to have to wind up making the choice. Also, it adds to your karma points, so you get either kind of neutral, positive, or evil. And that will always determine the outcome of the game. +1 apple. Of course, different choices will get you different fruit give you different stat boosts. And of course, really the town mayor doesn't care. He says he strongly protests to you entering the mines, but you're gonna do it anyway. You're the main character, you don't care. Yep, turns out the girl that you were trying to kidnap's name is Kiona. So we're going to help Irid save Kiona from the mines for not necessarily any good reason. Other than, I guess, Rylus forcing you to go because he wants you to see whether or not these people in the mine are the people that you're looking for. So we go over to the mine. This is the mine. There we go. Now we have some commentary about the mine. When he says get prepared for this, he means try and grind before you come in here because it will get hard fast. But really, we don't have time for that. So if we just kind of fight. We already bought Torch a longsword, so he should be all set. I suppose another thing they expect you to do before, or I expected the character to do before entering in here, would be get antidotes. I give you quite a few cleansing bells to begin with to cure poison, but it's not necessarily enough depending on how many spiders you encounter and how many times the spider uses poison. And of course these are kind of typical game starting enemies where they're not necessarily too difficult to kill. Just kind of starting the player off nicely and learning the combat system and items and everything. And I don't make the encounter rates too high, mostly because when I test these games, the encounter rates get annoying. And then I realize kind of random encounters are somewhat annoying in general, so I try to make them just as low as I possibly can, while still giving you enough time to level your characters up and everything. Unfortunately, best course of action when fighting these is to kind of just continue using regular fight options, since you want to conserve all of your soul power for fighting the boss. Makes you wonder why this kobold is tackling you if he's holding a big sword. Sword that, technically, in comparison to the character, looks bigger than them. Alright, so the good news is we reached level 4. We're continuing through the mines. Of course, all of these enemies have very common attacks. You know, the bat wants to blind you, the spider wants to poison you, the kobold wants to tackle you. The environment is shaking, suggesting to you that the environment is going to fall or break in some way, and trying to increase the urgency at which you want to find Kiona.